Tertium Organum by P.D. Ouspensky, Chapter 2. As already stated, Kant propounded the problem, but gave no solution of it, nor did he point the way to a solution, and not one of the known commentators, interpreters, followers, or adversaries of Kant has found a solution, or a way to it. I find the first flashes of a right understanding of the Kantian problem and the first suggestions in regard to a possible way towards a solution in the attempts at a new treatment of the problem of space and time, involving the concept of the fourth dimension and higher dimensions in general. An interesting synopsis of many things developed in this direction is that of C.H. Hinton, author of the books A New Era of Thought and The Fourth Dimension. Hinton notes, among other things, that in commenting upon Kantian ideas, only their negative side is usually insisted upon, namely the fact that we can cognize things in a sensuous way, in terms of space and time only, as regarded as an obstacle, hindering us from seeing what things in themselves really are, preventing the possibility of cognizing them as they are, imposing upon them that which is not inherent in them, shutting them off from us. But, says Hinton, if we take Kant's statement simply as it is, not seeing in the spatial conception a hindrance to right receptivity, that we apprehend things by means of space, then it is equally allowable to consider our space sense not as a negative condition hindering our perception of the world, but as a positive means by which the mind grasps its experiences, i.e., by which we cognize the world. There is, in so many books in which the subject is treated, a certain air of despondency, as if this space apprehension were a kind of veil that has shut us off from nature. But there is no need to adopt this feeling. The first postulate of this book is a full recognition of the fact that it is by means of space that we apprehend what is. Space is the instrument of the mind. Very often a statement which seems to be most deep and abstruse and hard to grasp is simply the form into which deep thinkers have thrown a very simple and practical observation. And for the present, let's look upon Kant's great doctrine of space from a practical point of view. And it comes to this. It is important to develop the space sense, for it is the means by which we think about real things. Now, according to Kant, Hinton goes on to say, the space sense, or the intuition of space, is the most fundamental power of the mind, but I do not find anywhere a systematic and thoroughgoing education of the space sense. It is left to be organized by accident. Yet the special development of the space sense makes us acquainted with a whole series of new conceptions. Fichte, Fichte, Schelling, Schelling, Hegel, Hegel, have developed certain tendencies and have written remarkable books, but the true successors of Kant are Gauss, Gauss, and Lobachevsky, Lobachevsky, Lobachevsky. For if our intuition of space is the means whereby we apprehend, then it follows that there may be different kinds of intuition of space. Who can tell what the absolute space intuition is? The intuition of space must be colored, so to speak, by the conditions of physical activity of the being which uses it. By a remarkable analysis, the great geometers above mentioned the above, let me read that sentence again. By a remarkable analysis, the great geometers above mentioned have shown that space is not limited as ordinary experience would seem to inform us, but that we are quite capable of conceiving different kinds of space. In brackets, a new era of thought. So this seems to be another section of this chapter here. And I guess it's entitled A New Era of Thought. Okay. Hinton invented a complicated system for the education and development of the space sense by means of exercises with groups, the cubes of different colors. The books above mentioned are devoted to the exposition of this system. In my opinion, Hinton's exercises are interesting from a theoretical standpoint, but they are practically valuable only for such as have the same turn of mind as Hinton's own. Exercises of the mind, according to his system, must first of all lead to the development of an ability to imagine objects, not as the eye sees them, i.e. in perspective, but as they are geometrically. To learn to imagine the cube, for example, simultaneously from all sides. Moreover, such a development of the imagination as overcomes the illusions of the perspective results in the expansions of the limits of consciousness, thus creating new conceptions and augmenting the faculty for perceiving analogies. Let me read that last sentence again, because that seems important. Moreover, such a development of the imagination as overcomes the illusion of perspective results in the expansion of the limits of consciousness, thus creating new conceptions and augmenting the faculty for perceiving analogies. Okay. So that ends that part of this chapter. And now Ouspensky has divided these chapters up by kind of a quarter line across the page. So I'm going to say new section every time we come to one of these, okay? So, new section. Kant established the fact that the development of knowledge under the existing conditions of receptivity will not bring us any closer to things in themselves. But there are theories asserting that it is possible, if desired, to change the very conditions of receptivity and thus to approach the true substance of things. In the books above referred to, Hinton tries to unite scientific foundations of such theories. Our space, as we ordinarily think of it, is conceived as limited, not in extent, but in a certain way that can only be realized when we think of our ways of measuring space objects. It is found that there are only 3 independent directions in which the body can be measured. It must have height, length, and breadth, but it has no more than these dimensions. If any other measurement is to be taken, this new measurement will be found in to be compounded of the old measurements. It is impossible to find a point in the body which could not be arrived at by traveling in combinations of the 3 directions already taken. But why should space be limited to 3 independent directions? Geometers have found that there is no reason why bodies which we can measure should be thus limited. As a matter of fact, all the bodies which we can measure are thus limited. So we come to this conclusion that the space that we use for conceiving ordinary objects in the world is limited to 3 dimensions. But it might be possible for there to be beings living in a world such as they would conceive a space of 4 dimensions. It is possible to say a great deal about space of higher dimensions than our own, and to work out analytically many problems which suggest themselves. But can we conceive 4-dimensional space in the same way in which we can conceive our own space? Can we think of a body in 4 dimensions as a unit having properties, in the same way as we think of a body having a definite shape in the space with which we are familiar? There is really no more difficulty in conceiving four-dimensional shapes when we go about it in the right way than in conceiving the idea the idea of solid shapes, nor is there any mystery at all about it. When the faculty to apprehend in four dimensions is acquired, or rather when it's brought into consciousness, for it exists in everyone in imperfect form, a new horizon opens. The mind acquires a development of power, and in this use of ampler space as a mode of thought, a path is opened by using that very truth which, when first stated by Kant, seems to close the mind within such vast limits. Our perception is subject to the condition of being in space, but space is not limited as we at first think. The next step, after having formed this power of conception in ampler space, is to investigate nature and see what phenomena are to be explained by the four-dimensional relations. The thought of past ages has used the conception of a three-dimensional space and by that means has classified many phenomena and has obtained rules for dealing with matters of great practical utility. The path which opens immediately before us in the future is that of applying the conception of four-dimensional space to the phenomena of nature and investigating what can be found out by this new means of apprehension. For development of knowledge, it is necessary to separate the self-elements, i.e., the personal elements, which we put in everything cognized by us, and that which is cognized, in order that our attention may not be distracted from the properties which we in substance perceive. Only by getting rid of the self-elements in our receptivity do we put ourselves in a position in which we can propound sensible questions. Only by getting rid of the notion of a circular motion of the sun around the earth do we prepare our way to study the sun as it really is. But the worst about a self-element is that its presence is never dreamed of till it's got rid of. In order to understand what the self-element in our receptivity means, imagine ourselves to be translated suddenly to another part of the universe and to find there intelligent beings and to hold conversation with them. If we told them that we came from this world and were to describe the sun to them, saying that it was bright, it was a bright, hot body which moved around us, they would reply, "You have told us something about the sun, but you've also told us something about yourselves." Therefore, desiring to tell something about the sun, we shall first of all get rid of the self-element which is introduced into our knowledge of the sun by the movement of the earth upon which we are round it. One of our serious pieces of work will be to get rid of the self-elements in the knowledge of the arrangement of objects. The relations of our universe to our space with regard to the wider universe of four-dimensional space are altogether undetermined. The new relationship will require a great deal of study to apprehend, and when apprehended will seem as natural to us as the position of the Earth among the other planets seems to us now. I would divide studies of arrangement into two classes, those which create the faculty of arrangement and those which use it and exercise it. Mathematics exercises it, but I do not think it creates it. And unfortunately, in mathematics, as it is now taught, the pupil is launched into a vast system of symbols. The whole use and meaning of symbols, namely as a means to acquire a clear grasp of facts, is lost to him. Of the possible units which will serve for the study of arrangement, I take the cube, and I have found that whenever I took any other unit, I got wrong, puzzled, and lost my way. With the cube, one does not get along very fast, but everything is perfectly obvious and simple and builds up into a whole of which every part is evident. Our work, then, will be this: a study by means of cubes of the facts of arrangement, and the process of learning will be an active one of actually putting up the cubes. Thus, we will bring our minds into contact with nature. And then in brackets, a new era of thought. And then there's a new section. Okay, I'm going to pause here and continue this. But before I do, I'd just like to say something about what he said here. And I'm not too sure that I agree with it. Let me see if I can find it here. All right, I just found it. It's this one paragraph, which I just read out loud, and I'm going to read it again. I would divide studies of arrangement into two classes, those which create the faculty of arrangement and those which use it and exercise it. Mathematics exercises it, but I do not think it creates it. Okay, I agree so far. Now, then he goes on to say, and unfortunately in mathematics, as it is now taught, the pupil is launched into a vast system of symbols. The whole use and meaning of the symbols, namely as means to acquire a clear grasp of facts, is lost to him. And that's the part that I'm not sure I agree with that. All right, so let me just say this. You know, I've studied mathematics. I mean, it was a long time ago, and I'm not a mathematician or anything else. I don't have a PhD in mathematics, but I do have a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics. So, but I just don't agree. You know, he says the whole use and the meaning of the symbols, namely as means to acquire a clear grasp of facts, is lost to him. Either I'm not understanding what he's saying, or I really don't agree, because I came to realize as I was studying mathematics that the symbols actually make it possible for you to understand the concepts in a very almost intuitive way. It's like magic. Like there comes a point at which you clearly see, you know, when you're studying mathematics, you clearly see the magic of it, the beauty of it, the simplicity, the elegance of it. And I think that can only come about if you are very familiar with the symbols that you're using, and it's almost like they seep into your your soul or something. Okay, I'm being a little silly here, right? But anyhow, if you study mathematics, or you have some ideas on this, or you have anything to say on this, leave a message for me below, because I'm just kind of in my own bubble here, trying to understand what Ouspensky is saying. And I know he wrote this more than 100 years ago, and maybe, it wouldn't hold true anymore, any of this. But it's interesting to see, where our concepts come from. And Ouspensky was actually a great thinker. And this is why we still care about what he said. And I've read 2 other books here on YouTube. One was... New Model of the Universe, and the other one was In Search of the Miraculous. And, his way of looking at things, which he got primarily from Gurdjieff, was really influenced my life. I mean, how I look at my life. So, it's important to me that I understand these things, and that I see where he and I differ in our understanding. Okay? Well, I think I babbled on long enough, and so hope you're kind of enjoying this, and till soon.